Hi, I think this is the eighth video on the complete archives by collected archives by Cabbage Games and Kenny Norris. So in this chapter, Kenny is creating his PC, but he's not creating it, sort of game mechanics. He's not rolling stats or hit points or anything like that. It's more about kind of exploring who the character is, um, what his motivations and that sort of thing. And this all fits in with his epic system for his creating campaigns. And so what he does is he's got his campaign which he covered a couple of couple of videos ago, and he's kind of got this general idea of this flamboyant roboticist. And then he goes through, he's got a process for creating his names, and then he creates a floor and a gift, and then uh, some kind of inner motivation, um, and then core values. Now, when you read through Kenny's actual process, it's quite involved and quite time consuming. Now, I know lots of people that like to create characters purely for the joy of creating characters, and they make far more characters than they're ever going to play. And that's almost a form of solo play in its own right. Well, it's not almost; it is a form of solo play. You are get deriving enjoyment on your own from your role playing, creating characters. That's all part of the game. So they're just focusing on one bit. The way that Kenny's doing this here, there's an awful lot of stuff that's going on in Kenny's head, exploring his character's background and motivations. Which now, this could be a backstory, it could be anything like you like. Now, this is the sort of thing which I would probably do as a mind map. But for me, I wouldn't do this before I started play. I would do this as I play. And one game that had quite a big influence on the way I think about campaigns, I suppose, was Dungeon World. And one of the things that came up in Dungeon World is this concept of you play to find out. So you don't need to know everything in advance. They use this idea of fronts where you kind of what of say a villain's or a faction's goals are and the motivation and the things that the steps they will go through. But you don't plan it all out, and it's just when every time the characters fail, the villains get to advance down their sort of ladder of priorities, or up their ladder of priorities, whichever way you want to think of it. Um, down the path to to their ultimate success or their ultimate aim. So you don't have to plot that because it will come out. You will play to find out. Now, when I create a character, I often, I have that core idea of the character I want to play, and then I can explore the character through play as I come up with conflicts, either social or physical or even combat type stuff. I can learn about how my character is going to respond to them. I had situation in uh, the a modern age game I'm playing where it turned out that the only contact I had at Oxford University was an ex-lover, and and it didn't end well. And the oracle suggested that, but I had no idea about that beforehand. So it made me think about the character then has to phone this person, and how was that going to go if it when they speak, how did how did he feel, how long ago was it, how did he feel today about what happened that long ago. As it is, they didn't answer the phone, so it never came up, but it made me think about those sorts of things. Now, one of the easiest way to keep all of these ideas together is a mind map with your character at the center. And every time you learn something about your character's personality, you can add it to the mind map. And if you think it's a big a big issue, a big part of the personality, you can literally make the bubble that that idea is in bigger. So you've got this visual representation and how these things connect, and you can not only put ideas, thoughts, values in there, but you can also put experiences and relationships in there and how they relate to things. And something else you can do with the mind map as you're playing is, now I kind of borrowed this from Call of Cthulhu and RuneQuest. When you successfully use a skill in those games, you tick a little box next to it, and when at the end of the adventure you get a chance to advance it. But on a mind map, what you can do, if you've got all these kind of values and ideas that the character has, every time you use them in play, you can put a tiny little tick in the bubble. And then over time, you'll see that certain ideas get ticked again and again and again. So these are obviously really their core values for the character, or they're strong motivators for the character, or they're important relationships for the character. Whatever it is that's on this mind map, putting it on there is one thing, but then you can do a tiny little tick or a tiny little X in the box every time you use that. And it not only does it help you remain consistent, because when you look at this mind map, you can see it makes answering some questions easier. Where if you constantly see, and so if you see that the character is repeatedly acting in a particular way, that's almost going to be their default action. And then there's other things where you thought the idea at one point was important, so you put it on the mind map, but actually you're really not playing it. You can you have a look at that and think, well, why was it important then? Why are they not acting on it? Were they acting that way because other people expected them to, or something like that? So this visual representation, you can actually work out what your core values are in play once the campaign is running by looking at uh, how the values you've put down, how you're using them. But I play to find out, because the character is far more important than the campaign as far as I'm concerned. Um, I think I put more focus on exploring this character, whereas Kenny has this massive campaign structure, and he's then using the campaign structure to inform the character, rather than for me, the universe exists around my character. So it's a slightly different approach there. I often like visual things because they're very easy to stick in extra things. When you start making lists, or you start free writing and you've got paragraphs and sentences, inserting an idea, back, retrofitting an idea is more difficult. With a mind map, it's very easy just to draw the extra connection. So yeah, it's I like what Kenty's doing. I like the way that he gets his ideas out, but I think he is actually solo playing his character creation. Um, that's part of the game for him. Now, he doesn't explicitly say that, but it comes across in the writing. So he's almost playing his character's backstory incrementally, using some checkpoints of these core values, inner life, gifts, flaws, and well, the character's name probably not so much. Um, but he's using these tick boxes and these criteria, and he's actually solo playing his character's creation, dipping back into the character's history and formative experiences. So yeah, he's got a very different approach to me, but yeah, it's an equally valid approach. If you don't like mind maps, if you like to have a structure to work to, it's probably worth looking at Kenny's approach. Although I'm still influenced by that, playing to find out what happens. That for me, that's the game. Okay, thank you for watching.